we are going to record this. It's already recording. So this way, if anyone you know that wanted to attend today was unable to do so, we'll have the opportunity to watch it afterwards, right on our homepage at elephantsandtea.com, as well as our YouTube channel as well. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen now so everybody can see the slides here that we're going to use. And with that, I want to do a quick introduction here. So community conversation, wellness, nutrition. Before I introduce Angie and Michele, as a reminder, this is a more informative type setting than what we typically do in the past with our purgatory events and other storytelling events with Elephants and Tea and the Stephen G. Cancer Foundation. This is just an opportunity to talk about specific topics that are relevant to the AYA cancer community. And wellness and nutrition is something that is near and dear to our hearts as well as our organization. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we do as an organization, why we do it as an organization, and then Michele is kind enough to join us today and talk about one of those awesome programs that we help fund and implement at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital in Cleveland. So with that, feel free to ask questions. We will hold questions till the end, but Lisa and Rachel on our team will be keeping an eye on the chat for us and answer questions as best they can. But obviously, feel free to ask questions at the end, and we'll save some time for that. With that, Angie, can you please introduce yourself for everybody here?
Hi, everyone. My name is Angie Giallourakis. I am the founder of the Stephen G. Cancer Foundation. I was a former president, and I am the mother of Stephen G. So I'm glad to be here today, and you'll hear more about me and my experience with the wellness program.
Awesome. Thanks, Mom. And then Michele, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name is Michele Rothstein. I'm the Rainbow Community Outreach and Patient Support Program Coordinator. It's a tongue twister at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. I predominantly work with our Pediatric Hematology and Oncology department, which serves our AYA population, as well as our peds and our other kids with different blood disorders. So I do all sorts of programming both in and out of the hospital.
Awesome. Thanks, Michele. And I realize I didn't specifically mention my title. I'm Executive Director of Elephants and Tea and the Stephen G. Cancer Foundation, co-founder of Elephants and Tea with Angie. So the agenda for today, as I mentioned a little bit, we just did our introductions, which went great. I'll talk about what we do. Angie's going to talk about why we do it. And Michelle's going to talk about the impact specifically with the smoothie program. And then we'll open it up for questions at the end. So with that, here's a quick snapshot of what we do and why we do it. Our Be Calm, Stay Strong wellness bags, smoothie days, as well as meditation sessions with Mama G, or Angie, as we like to call her. Those are our three main programs that we've been doing specifically in 2021. The image on the right here is a nice little snapshot that's going to be coming out our 2021 annual report later this month on what we do with these different programs. And the wellness kits, you'll hear from Angie more than anything. We delivered over 125 last year to patients stuck in the hospital for a long period of time, or someone that might need a pick-me-up. And those have really been impactful across the country. We sent those to hospitals, university hospitals in Cleveland, where Michelle's at, Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, MD Anderson in Texas, Upstate Cancer Center in New York, and Roswell Park Cancer Center in Buffalo, New York as well. Smoothie Days, which is what Michele is directly involved with, served 975 smoothies and milkshakes approximately last year, which is tremendous. And I tip my cap to Michele for organizing that and running that program, because without her, that would not be possible. And then recently, Angie is a certified yoga nidra meditation instructor and has been doing virtual classes on meditation. We ran 16 of those last year for the AYA community, which has impacted not just the patients and survivors, but caregivers and family friends as well, which has been really cool to see. And so really excited about that. I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Genome Oncology. Just so happens that's where my brother Steve now works as well, who's our president of our foundation. They already packed 200 wellness bags for us this year. And so we're looking forward to getting those out. And I know that our friends at the Children's Hospital of Arkansas and University of Iowa received some already this year from us. So Again, thank you so much to Genome Oncology for filling those bags up, because as you'll hear from Angie, she was doing those with maybe a couple others in her basement for years. And this was one of the first times we got a big group of people together and knocked it out in about 45 minutes, which is pretty darn awesome. So thank you all for your support with that. So with that, I am going to now turn it over to Angie to give her portion of the presentation on why we do this and some history behind that and the importance of it for AYA. So Angie, take it away.
Well, hello, everyone. And again, thank you for being here today. I appreciate your time and energy in your interest in the wellness program. Nick, next slide, please. So obviously, the first question people ask is, well, why are you doing this? And obviously, well, it may be not so obviously for everyone, but Stephen, our youngest son, is now a 4-time or 5-time cancer survivor. The photograph here was after his first cancer, which was stage 4 osteosarcoma. And it was him that put me in a position of having to look at not necessarily alternative, but complementary approaches to wellness to help him deal with his own issues. A little history behind Steve. He had a bone marrow transplant when he was 19 years old because he was diagnosed with secondary acute myelogenous leukemia, which apparently was caused by certain aspects of the treatment that he had for his osteosarcoma. Once he had the bone marrow transplant, it was successful, and I'm very thankful for that. He left the hospital, he was okay, but then he started to experience what is called graft versus host disease, GVHD. And the GVHD presented itself in the first year, more like brief acute episodes that caused him to go into the hospital through the ER with an ambulance and then come home after a few days. And then following that, he started having joint pain, muscle pain, weird contractions, and also the chronic fatigue that is not uncommon with people who have gone through rigorous chemotherapy. It was at this time that I started to ask questions and wondered, what can be done to help people in this situation, like my son. Next slide, please. So the other piece to this in terms of my motivations has to do with all the other children, teens, and young adults that have been diagnosed with cancer. The photograph on the one side here where you see the shoes was from one of the Cure Fests that I attended in Washington, D.C. The shoes represent children who are no longer with us, that have died from the cancer that they were diagnosed with. And this was not just pediatric cancer. These were adolescent, teens, and young adults. The child on the left, whom I do not know, and forgive me for that, is a young man who was ended up in a wheelchair because of his cancer. Children and young adults, teenagers, all of them were people that impacted me and continue to impact me emotionally. So when I began thinking about what needed to be done, I started asking questions. Next slide, please. And I knew I needed to do some homework. Next slide, please. So as I approached the subject of wellness, these were the questions that I started thinking about. Because when a person like my son, for example, was post-treatment, the chronic pain, the fatigue, those were things that we really had no idea he would be experiencing. And we were wondering, is there some way to help alleviate some of these things that are happening after treatment? Also, what about the whole experience of being in the hospital? So here are my questions. What can be done to improve the quality of life of an AYA cancer patient? And that includes during treatment. How can I improve the hospital experience? If any of you have spent a long period of time in the hospital, especially if you're a young adult, and sometimes even teenagers, you really feel out of place. And that is one of the dilemmas of AYA cancer patients. How about nutrition? One of the things that struck me when my son went in, he was told, eat whatever you want. And I often wondered about that. Is there something that could be done to help educate people about nutrition? For example, if you look down to the slide the bullet that says, how about people that live in communities that lack fully stocked grocery stores, AKA food deserts? When we think about people that are middle class or upper middle class, they often have access to grocery stores that have all the fruits and vegetables available to them. But also, we also wanted to make sure that people understood that this was something that may be helpful to you, that fruits and vegetables may be of benefit to you. And that's something that Michele gets to talk about a little later. What about financial aspects? Certainly, we know that insurance, many AYAs do not have insurance because either they're still in college or maybe they're just starting out on their own. And the way it currently is if you're fortunate enough to have parents who can afford insurance, you are eligible to be under their plan until you're 26 years old. But what happens after that? Okay, those were things that I was thinking about. And then lastly, because again, the impact of witnessing so many young children, teenagers, and young adults diagnosed with cancer really caused me to feel as though my heart was always in my throat. Okay, so how do I operationalize hope? How do I do that to help ease some of that pain and suffering that people are going through? Next slide, please. So after doing some research, the topics that kept coming up over and over again were as follows. Obviously, cancer survivorship. What does that mean? It has so many different ways of being explained. A person is considered a cancer survivor if they've if they're NED or have no evidence of disease until they're from 5 years out from their treatment, or from the end of their treatment, excuse me. What about stress management? We know how that impacts people from the minute they're diagnosed with cancer, what that does to the individual as well as the people involved in their lives. How about diet? Can diet change? We know that, for example, there is one type of breast cancer where diet has an impact on the disease itself. And I was curious, what about other illnesses? Is there some way? And again, that's an ongoing research within the National Cancer Institute. Meditation. I learned that meditation might be something of use to people. Yoga is one means of offering an opportunity not only to release tension and relax, but also build bone strength, stretch muscles. For example, a woman who's had breast cancer, the muscles across her chest are going to be very tight. So what kind of exercises can they be doing to release that tension? Exercise in general. Sometimes people think they shouldn't exercise when they're in chemotherapy. However, if your doctor approves it, there might be types of exercises that you can be doing to help your body feel better throughout treatment and possibly reduce the amount of neuropathy that you're experiencing. And again, these are all hypotheses, not with a lot of data supporting the neuropathy piece. Okay, but there is some research out there. And then psychosocial issues. This is a big piece for me because my background has been in working with families with children with disabilities. So I know that psychosocial issues has a tremendous impact on the person and the family when they lack a support system, when they're living in poverty, when they lack financial support. Next slide, please. So these were a few things that I learned. I learned about AYA cancer patients. For example, AYA cancer patients are at a greater risk of poor nutrition, chronic health problems, and poor self-esteem. And all of these risk factors are exacerbated by poverty. Next slide, please. I also learned that about cancer survivorship, that nutritional education and relaxation training like meditation and deep breathing for cancer patients could result in a reduction of chronic fatigue, pain, and poor self-esteem. Next slide, please. I also learned that cancer survivorship and quality of life go hand in hand. And that's huge, okay? And for those of you out there that are professionals in the field of sociology or psychology or in medicine, you understand this. But for the average person, what does it mean for me to have good quality of life? It really depends on the individual, okay? So as I read these things, I started to conceptualize, what should a wellness kit have? What should be in this wellness kit? Next slide, please. Well, one of the things that I thought about is attitude, okay? I know my son always had a smile on his face during his treatments, and people kept saying what a great attitude he had. I also know that inside himself, he was experiencing a lot of anxiety and stress, but on the outside, he looked pretty good, okay? But attitude in and of itself is something that also can help motivate us to do things to help ourselves, okay? Next slide, please. So the reason I talk about attitude is because of Stuart Scott, okay? It was 2 or 3 years after I had developed the wellness kits, and I read about Stuart Scott. Stuart Scott was an ESPN anchor and reporter, and he had been diagnosed with cancer in his early 40s. It was in 2011. And Stuart Scott really he was very proud man and presented himself on the television as though nothing was wrong, all right, which is not uncommon for many powerful people on TV. But what he did say was something very profound to me. And it was during his acceptance speech at the ESPY Awards in 2014, the year before he passed away. He received the Jimmy V Award for Perseverance. And he said, "You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live." This was a quote that I wanted to put in poster sizes, not only for the cancer patient to help motivate them perhaps, but also for people like myself, for caregivers and advocates of cancer patients. We have a responsibility as well to make sure that the experience that the cancer patient is having is something that addresses their quality of life and wellness in general. Next slide, please. So the items that I selected truly have a purpose. And I took time to speak to some of the medical professionals that I knew, social workers and counselors and nurses, to find out what they felt would be useful. In addition, I even had a little mini focus group with some patients and said, "Hey, what do you think about all of these things?" And they said, "We love all of them." The other person that I spoke to was my son, and to get his feedback, because again, he was 15 years old with his first cancer, 19 years old with his second. He spent many, many, many days and weeks in the hospital. So what could I do with a wellness kit that would improve the quality of their life while they were in the hospital? Next slide, please. So there are 3 categories that the kit is, that the items of the kit are presented here. And here is the list. I'm not going to read them to you, but what I want you to be aware of is that there's daily life. There are those things that just make life a little easier when you're in the hospital, from the pen and the notebook, the canvas bag to schlep things around, a copy of Elephants and Tea magazine, an Amazon gift card, coloring books, just to pass the time, daily pill box, and a reusable water bottle. And the reason why those things were really important to me was maybe even the patient may not need that item, but maybe the caregiver does. Okay, so there's this little balance going on between not only the patient, but also the person in the room with them. Relaxation, again, because of the research that I read and felt supported by the research, I wanted items that would represent calm. What could I do to make a person aware that maybe they could make their space a little calmer and accepting? So an eye pillow, and you may be wondering what they look like, but they're about this long. And my wonderful sister-in-law, Judy, makes them for me. And they're filled with flaxseed. And they're an item that can be refrigerated and placed on your forehead when you have a headache, or just placed on your head when you need to close your eyes and, tune out the world. Headphones, at the time that we started using this, headphones were still a thing. Now, not so much, because everyone has different kinds of phones and different types of headphones. And now people are using YouTube and, Bluetooth phones. The LED candlelight is just a teeny weeny votive candle that's battery operated. Again, you can't burn regular candles in a hospital room, but you can click on a votive and turn off all the lights and just create a little ambiance for yourself and to help you relax. The door hanger, well, that was Steve's idea, and it says, keep out. Do not disturb, okay? Because oftentimes, people open up the door, they come right in, and maybe it's just not the right time for you. Essential oils, there is some research to support that aromatherapy might help with nausea, particularly lavender. Some people told me that they preferred peppermint, so it's kind of an individual thing. It's not so much that I recommend putting them on their body, because of course it could burn their skin, but to either just smell it or use an atomizer of some type. Earplugs, have you ever just wanted to tune out the noise in the hospital? Well, that's what those are for. And then Scentsy is a line of aromatherapy products, for lack of a better word. And they have these little tins about the size of a telephone, actually, but much skinnier. And they're called travel tins. And there's one product line that's called Just Breathe. So it's a nice minty smelling scent. Sorry about that. I'm a little nervous and I don't know why, but and it's called Just Breathe. Again, if you spend a lot of time in the hospital, you may have noticed that the bathrooms kind of don't smell so great after a while, or even the room itself. So you open up your little tin, you can wave it around a little bit and just kind of create a minty smell. Thank you, Liz. And then from wellness sake, I remember my son having chemotherapy and his lips were all dry and he's laying in the room and he needed lip balm. Well, the nurses, because they knew and loved him and knew they could kind of play a trick on him, gave him lip balm and didn't tell him that it was tinted. Okay, so here's this kid feeling like crud. And I walk in and he has red lip balm on his face. Well, it was a joke on him and it was a joke on me. I was totally okay with it because I know how antagonistic the relationship was between him and his nurses. But always felt that it was really important to have some natural lip balm that doesn't contain petroleum jelly. An exercise band. The National Institute of Cancer Research has these awesome workout bands that I used for years and years and years. However, they don't make them anymore. So now we order them in bulk and we measure out 3 feet and cut them and put them in little bags. Again, sending the message that exercise is a good thing, not only for the patient, but also for the caregiver. Hand cream, hand sanitizer, tissues are not listed here, I don't think. Nope. Nutritional information. Also, the National Institute of Cancer Research provides some awesome booklets at a nominal price on nutrition during treatment. Also, there's books on after treatment, following treatment, and even before, ways to help prevent cancer. Unfortunately, in the childhood and AYA space, it isn't so much about preventing cancer as it is about getting rid of it. Hard candies, those infamous lemon drops or lemon barrels are quite awesome. how many times people have said, and including my son, that that was the only thing that helped those salivary glands work. And then a wonderful organization called Thrive Cosmetics donates makeup to us. And for anyone that likes to wear makeup. So we usually, when I send it out in bulk to hospitals, I put the makeup and on the side and allow the social worker to distribute to those people who want makeup. Let's see. I think I covered all the points. Next slide, please. So it goes without saying that these items are packaged with love, but you have to understand that as important as one item is, all the items are so important. And it's really important that they were packed neatly and in order. So next slide, please. That's what my family looked like, okay? My poor family had to deal with me when I would have them, when I would recruit them to come over and help me package, you know, let's say 50 wellness kits. I knew that they had to be done a certain way because I wanted the patient to be able to open them up and see what was there in a neat fashion. So I love you, family, for helping me, and for those awesome people at Genome Oncology. I know I kind of walked around sometime going, could you do that? Or could you do this? And again, it's about the presentation, it's about the attitude and wanting to ensure that this is a good experience when they open up those packages. Next slide, please. So obviously you couldn't do it alone. I couldn't do it alone. There's no way I could have done it alone. And this is just a small sample, but a very important core group of people that helped us over the years and years and years. There's only one person that's not in that picture that should be, and that's my son, Philip, but he's in the next one. Next slide, please. Or maybe not the next one, but the one after that. Anyways, this is just a brief, quick photograph of one of our fundraisers. And that's where most of our money came from before Elephants and Tea became a part of the Stephen G. Cancer Foundation. So we would raise money and we would put a part of it towards research and another part of it towards wellness. And that was pretty much what we did. Next slide, please. Nope, go back one. And my son Philip and Stephen are in this picture in the background behind Dr. Alex Wong. And I included Dr. Alex Wong, thank you, Nick, because he is one of the researchers that we have supported. He is part of the case tell me if I'm wrong, Michelle, the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center, okay, and his team of researchers, as well as a few family friends on the side. It's really important to note that what we do when we send out these wellness kits, these Be Calm, Stay Strong wellness kits, are done knowing that we have approval by medical and researchers, as well as the family and the patients. Next slide, please. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are awesome. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Well, I guess it's smoothie time now. And actually it's kind of appropriate because Thursday afternoons tend to be smoothie day. It is everybody's day of the week. And hopefully as I talk, you'll understand a little bit of why that is. But before I really get started, I just have to say thank you to the Stephen G. Cancer Foundation, because without them and all of their donors, Smoothie Day wouldn't happen. And it has become the most loved, or one of the most loved things that we do in the hospital. And just a few weeks ago, one of our moms who hasn't been in for a long time just brought their child back in for a second transplant and said, I knew you had to have been busy because we didn't have Smoothie Day this week. So it's something that happens on a pretty regular basis. And next slide, please. And I'll tell you a little bit how it got started and where it's going. So Angie informed me, because Smoothie Day started before I came to Rainbow, that it started sometime in 2012 or around 2012. And correct me if I'm wrong, Angie, but you were able to get Vitamixes donated to start the program. We're very lucky to still have one, and we recently got another one donated. and they make life with Smoothie Day a lot easier. I also was under the impression that Smoothie Day was more of a special event. It wasn't something that happened on a regular basis, but something that still happened was really important. As I moved into my role and learned about Smoothie Day, we tried to transition it to a more regular schedule, and something that we included both in our inpatient, on the inpatient floor, and in our outpatient clinic. It often happened in the playroom or in a very visible space that people could be involved and kind of be around. I also soon learned that reading off from memory a list of fruits and yogurt and all the different things that we have the ability to add to our smoothies and to our milkshakes was really overwhelming for families and especially for patients to try to remember. So hence the creation of our Smoothie Day order form, which has made life so much easier because it's right in front of them and I can still read it with patients or too young to read, but it gives everybody a little bit of a better understanding and kind of overview of what is in that has to do with Smoothie Day. I'm going to backtrack for a second and mention one other thing is before I start Smoothie Day, I also connect with all of our nurses before going to connect with families, just to make sure it's appropriate to invite a family to participate and make sure the patient is allowed to eat that day. And also to get any specifics that I might need to know as far as nutrition is concerned. We have the ability to add boost or extra protein to smoothies or milkshakes if needed. Sometimes extra calories are a good thing. So they'll say push a milkshake because even though it has sugar, it wouldn't be bad to give them some extra calories or try and include some peanut butter if you can. And sometimes sugar is a problem. So they'll suggest that we stick with just fruits and sometimes we'll make it with water. Sometimes we'll make it with juice, but whatever I need to know from nurses is super helpful in creating smoothies and milkshakes. So it's a joint effort between our medical staff and myself and any volunteers that I might have. So pre-COVID, it was wonderful. We had a lot of volunteers that were often wanting to help with Smoothie Day. It was a great way to also introduce to the community some of the things that were happening. So sometimes we had special event volunteers that would come in. It was someone that I worked with our development department, and they had an organization that really wanted to give back. And it was a neat way to kind of mix the two spaces together and allow them to come into the hospital and see the good things that we were able to do and how we were able to serve our families, even through outside organizations that helped us help families. And the best part was getting patients involved. It wasn't unusual for one of my little buddies and oftentimes the younger kids wanted to come and work the blender, even if I was putting everything in it. Unfortunately, with COVID, that's changed a little bit. So we'll continue on to the next slide, please. So Smoothie Day Today, COVID and beyond. The order forms came in incredibly handy with COVID. In the very beginning, I wasn't allowed to do anything but make the smoothies. It was back when we were conserving PPE. So I would go to the nurses, explain that it was Smoothie Day, hand out order forms to anyone they thought would have patients that wanted to participate. They would go into rooms whenever they were going in already to distribute medicine or check on patients. They'd bring back the order forms. And that's when I started decorating cups. As you can see in this picture, there's a smiley face on the cup where I would write enjoy, I'd write their names. If it was a special day or an end of chemo or a birthday or anything that I might have been told that something was going on, I would make their cup as fun as possible because there was so little interaction, especially in the early days of COVID, that I wanted to still make Smoothie Day. Even though getting a milkshake and a smoothie is fun, I wanted to make it extra special. We also started a much more regular schedule at that point. So it has turned into primarily that Thursday afternoons are Smoothie Day. Occasionally I'll do a fun nighttime smoothie day, or I guess it's not nighttime smoothie day, it's a smoothie night instead, just to switch things up and make it a little bit extra special. Unfortunately with COVID, and also with some of the rules in the hospital in terms of having our food service involved now, that has become mostly an inpatient activity. So hopefully once we're beyond COVID and things like that, it will return to an outpatient activity as well, because the nurses there ask me constantly when it's coming back. And hopefully we'll get to that point. I'm also working with our Sodexo. Sodexo is the company that runs our food services. I'm also working with them to become certified in Surf Safe so that I will be able to facilitate Smoothie Day back on my own again. It's how it started, and still adhere to all the policies at Rainbow. Next slide, please. So here are our stats. Starting in January of 2020, we, for the year of 2020, we served about 886 smoothies. Obviously, it's primarily for our patients, but Smoothie Day really touches everybody. Family members get super excited, and I think staff might be the most excited sometimes, even though it very rarely involves them. However, if someone's having a down day, I can see they're not their typical self, and it happens to be Smoothie Day, I'll ask them if they want one. And sometimes it's just been a really hard week, and I'll include all of the staff that are on that day. Our numbers increased in 2021. We made, as accurate as I can say, 975 smoothies that year. We served 436 patient smoothies, almost 400 family members, and almost 150 staff. And then this year, because COVID was so bad in the beginning of the year, I wasn't allowed to do Smoothie Day to start the year, but we did pick up in March and have done it pretty consistently, almost once a week since then. And unfortunately, our floor has been relatively full, quite a bit. So we're up to 116 patient smoothies and milkshakes already, almost 100 family members and 36 staff. So almost 250 smoothies and milkshakes this year. So I'm pretty excited. We're on track to hopefully serve a lot more smoothies and milkshakes, because it really is such an important part of, I'm very lucky that it's become part of my job, because seeing the smiles and everything else is amazing. Next slide, please. So to convey a little bit of the importance of Smoothie Day, or the impact that Smoothie Day has been, this picture where it says Smoothie Day, Samantha would like Oreos and strawberry smoothie, thank you, is probably, it's from in our days when we were over in Sideman. We've moved to Max 6 since then, and now back to Rainbow. So I would say that's probably close to 4 or 5 years old. And it was one of our AYAs, and she knew it was going to be Smoothie Day that day. So she left her order form taped to her door to make sure that I wouldn't forget her on Smoothie Day, because it was really important to her. A few weeks ago, one of our younger patients was in clinic. He had just been discharged from close to a month's stay in the hospital, and he happened to be talking to one of my coworkers, and they found out he wasn't eating at home. And he said, "Do you think Michelle would make me a smoothie? Because I would eat a smoothie." So sure enough, I got a message from somebody and said, "Is there any way you would make a smoothie for Philly? He's not eating at home, but he said he'll eat a milkshake." And of course, I dropped everything that I was doing. It wasn't a super busy day, and it made it easy for me to go grab the ingredients out of the freezer, grab the blender, and go deliver his favorite smoothie with cherries in it. And then also recently, and it tends to happen with our new patients, once they realize that Smoothie Day is a thing, it is something that is marked on their calendar and they're super excited for. I marked it as today because it happens to usually be Thursday, but I did a smoothie night instead of a Smoothie Day because the day was just so busy. And some of my coworkers had helped me gather order forms earlier in the day and gone room to room. And I noticed this mom didn't fill her order form out, and she always does. Her favorite is yogurt with bananas and peanut butter and chocolate chips. And her son's favorite is a strawberry banana smoothie with yogurt. And so I went to their room before I started and I said, "Gina, are you sure you don't want a smoothie? I didn't notice your order form." And she said, "Well, Devin came in earlier and she seemed so busy. I just didn't want to bother her. But I'm really glad you're back because I really want one." And you can just see how important Smoothie Day is to our families, to our patients, young, old, it doesn't matter, across the board. Angie had told me about a story from one of their early Smoothie Days about one of the patients that she met who hadn't had fruit accessible to her, and she had tried a raspberry for the very first time. And it's really impactful. The things that I take for granted, that I don't even think about, really make such a big difference to our patients and their families. Next slide, please. So Smoothie Day is so much more than just a smoothie. It's a simple act that I do. I pour a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I don't use a measuring cup. I just kind of dump a little bit of whatever is on the order form into the blender. I press start, and within a few seconds, a minute, I have a smoothie in a cup with a smiley face, sometimes with whipped cream and sprinkles, ready to go to a family. But it is so much more than just the smoothie. It's the smiles that you see on the floor, whether it's the nurses, the patients, the families, the doctors. Smoothie Day really makes an impact. There is just a different level of joy and happiness on the floor on a day that happens to be Smoothie Day. And some things that I think are even extra important is that it provides some normalcy. A smoothie or a milkshake is something you get at home, or maybe you get to go to a restaurant and have. And here it is, you're getting it in the hospital, which is not the typical. The connections that are made. Not only do I get to connect with our families and patients, and hopefully post-COVID, we will be able to have families connect with one another like they used to in the past. There was a little girl that helped me deliver smoothies whenever she was in the hospital. She would want to go with me to the door until I had to go inside, and she realized she couldn't go in, but she always wanted to be a part of Smoothie Day. So it really helps connect families with one another. And maybe one of the, if not the most important aspect, is it provides our patients with some choice. So much of the time when they're in the hospital, they don't have any choice at all. And that simple act of filling out their order form and choosing what's going in their smoothie or their milkshake that day provides them with something that they normally don't have. Next slide. Please. Here are just some fun pictures from Smoothie Day. Patients involved in helping to make them, which unfortunately with COVID, it's just me making them right now, but hopefully we'll get back to the day where they not only just enjoy them, but that they can participate and help to make them themselves, which is pretty awesome. So thank you again. I really appreciate the Stephen G. Cancer Foundation for supporting us and making this program possible at Rainbow. We're really lucky to be able to offer this to our patients and our families.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, Angie, for that awesome presentation. Oh, can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. I'm just getting weird feedback on my end. So, and just to let everybody know before we open up for questions, for anyone that is interested in supporting what we do, we are going to be running a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign virtually starting August 1st through the end of September. So be on the lookout for some announcements on that. But as you heard loud and clear, some of the awesome things that we do from Smoothie Day to our wellness kits, it really is impactful and it really is tremendous. And we actually got an awesome message today from the Children's Hospital of Arkansas on the wellness bags that we just shipped to them and they received, and super, super pumped they were able to get those. So be on the lookout. We'll be sending out some emails for this. That said, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to remove the spotlight from Michelle, myself, and Angie. And if anyone is off camera that wants to come on camera to ask questions, please go right ahead. Or if anyone wants to ask questions, Sabrina, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Hi there. So thank you all for this. It's been very informative. I came across elephants and tea just recently at CancerCon, and it was my first foray into y'all. So I really appreciate this. I had a question about Smoothie Day. Is there a way to, as a survivor, I know how helpful smoothies were for me during my chemo treatment because I was sipping on them at the exact same time chemo was administered, and it helped keep my taste buds intact. So I absolutely love this idea. Is there any way to try to get this started at my cancer center? Like, is that possible? Is there a way to even start that here?
Yes, so absolutely from our end of things. I don't know if Michelle, if there's any, I know you've went through some hoops on your end to get things going more from a functional standpoint, but from like a funding standpoint, definitely Sabrina, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. Absolutely.
And I'm happy to share what I've learned, because initially Smoothie Day was fine, no problems. Recently we've had a few snafus, but we have figured out how to get around them, and now I'm back in business and it's working perfectly. So I'm happy to share what I've learned in the last 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months now, with other people as well.
Great.
And if Nick, if you don't mind me just adding my 2 cents. I just wanted to add that Michelle has been awesome, and Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital is where Steve was treated, and perhaps that helped, get us vetted through them. And of course they know me and I do parent mentoring there, but each hospital has their own configuration of rules and regulations. So, but I think your best bet is to talk to whoever's ahead of the floor and start there and see what they have to say.
Thank you.
And then Sabrina, definitely like connect, if they're open to having that conversation, connect them with us, and we're happy to have that. I know Michelle would be happy to be a part of that conversation too on how she does things too.
Awesome. That'd be great. Thanks.
And I should add too, Sabrina, if you don't have my email address, here it is as well, Nick at Elephants and Tea.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So there's my email there.
Thank you.
And I saw a question from Mark, and it looks like Michelle already answered it, but just so in case no one missed it, Mark had said, the sugar levels seem to be a big potential barrier for some. Do you ever use plain yogurt to keep the sugar content down? And then he has some nice words to say about us, so thank you, Mark. And Michelle said, yes, they have used plain yogurt. And I don't know, Michelle, if there are any other issues like that that would be necessary to address, but I think that covers the sugar part. But anything else that you run into?
Not really. Sometimes people can't have dairy, so it's nice that we're able to do orange juice or apple juice. You would think it's gross if you do it with water, but I've actually done berry smoothies with just water and they work great as well. So we've found some different workarounds. I've done, if I know there's a patient that's going to be inconsistently and they're a milkshake kind of kid, I've gone out and gotten lactose-free ice cream or whatever ice cream they're able to have so that I can have something specifically for that patient. Or and I also have one blender that's dedicated to no nuts in terms of allergies. So that became really helpful. We had a patient last year that was in quite often and had a nut allergy. So I was grateful that I had a blender that's marked clearly. It has rainbow duct tape around it, and everybody knows that's the one that you use for nut allergies, because I feel as though, although I clean our blenders really well, there's still residue and I feel like it's not really clean. So that's the little bit that I feel like that I can do to just ensure that we keep our kids safe.
And if I can just throw in my 2 cents, when I first started it, I had the thought that it would strictly be, a fruit and yogurt type mix. But Michelle was able to, make it a bigger thing, which I think is awesome, because this way people have bigger choices, greater choices. And, we just know that people sometimes need a boost. So.
Great question. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay. Well, I'll give everyone a second just in case before we wrap things up here. Thank you all so much again for coming today. As a reminder, like we said, if anyone is interested to be a part of our fundraiser, we will be sending out some updates as we get closer to August 1st. If you want to view this and you know anyone that was unable to attend today, as we mentioned at the beginning, this is being recorded and we'll make this available on the elephantsandtea.com website and the soon to come new Stephen G. Cancer Foundation.com website. That's coming.org, I should say. And on the Elephants and Tea YouTube channel as well too. So be on the lookout for all that. While I continue to ramble, did anybody think of any other questions? To give you one last opportunity here. Ooh, Mark, do we have an ENT flyer you can share? We can send you magazines instead. That probably might be the easiest thing to send you for us, since there's a lot of information in there. We can even just put a link into all of those. I don't know if Rachel or Lisa, if you're able to grab that real quick for the digital issues, that'd be great. Yeah. And same thing, Mark, and anyone else that's part of a hospital, if you don't receive magazines from us, please feel free to reach out to myself, Lisa, or Rachel. And our emails are all our first name at elephantsandtea.com. Oh, Mark, if you're printing that by yourself, please, we will send you print copies. So let's talk. We'll actually send you the actual copies. So happy to do that. So
that sounds perfect. I would love it.
Yes, no, please reach out to us, Mark. So we send those to free and bulk to hospitals across the country. So please, please reach out. We'll get that all squared away with you.
All right.
That's a lot of paper. You're printing on your own. Bless your heart.
You sound like you're from the South with the bless the heart.
I am not from the South. My staff makes fun of me for sounding like.
No, you'd fit in right here at UAB down in the deep South. So thanks.
Awesome, fantastic. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, so nowhere remotely close to UAB. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. We'll give everybody 7 minutes back in their day. If you think of anything else after the fact or any other questions come up that you just didn't want to ask in front of the group, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And like Sabrina was asking and some others were asking, if you're interested in learning more how we can help bring this to your hospital, and organization, please let us know. We're happy to have that discussion with you for sure. Michele, Angie, thank you both so much for being our main presenters today, and especially Michele for all that you do.
Thank you,
You're
Michele.
welcome. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to share.
Very welcome. Take care, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Bye.